I don't know what hurt more. The Green Bay Packers getting their ass kicked by the New Orleans Saints or going 8-8 in the Pick'em League. No, it's the Packers thing because they only scored 3 points. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. I'm getting my ass kicked in the Pick'em League, Grossi, and today we're going to be going through each and every single Week 2 game of the 2021-2022 NFL season. And just to recap, the Pick'em League now has over 7,000 members in it, which is just insanity. We're in the top 10 groups on ESPN. We're the most occupied private group. Just nuts. So I want to thank you all for joining this. Should be a lot of fun. I went 8-8 last week, meaning that I am number 2,159th ranked. And there were 6 users who got 13 games correct last week. So a shout out to those folks picking those games correctly. And I don't know how, because there was a ton of upsets last week. But hopefully I can rebound this week and do just a bit better. So let's get into it. Starting off with the Thursday night game. You got the New Jersey Giants taking on the Washington football team. The Washington football team was leaking raw sewage on their fans over the weekend, and the Giants were just saving that for their on-field play. The Giants getting slapped around by the Denver Broncos, and it wasn't particularly close. They couldn't get the run game going. Daniel Jones doing what he does best and fumbling the ball, and the Broncos kind of just had their way with them. The Washington football team, unfortunately, lost Ryan Fitzpatrick to IR, but he should be back at some point during this season. Happened during the game, and so Taylor Heinicke, good old Heinicke, he had to step in, and he played admirably. And while they did take a lead against the Chargers, they eventually fell just a bit short. Now, I think the Washington football team obviously has the better defense. I think Saquon Barkley, who really struggled last week to run the ball against the Denver defense, is going to have just as much as a hard time running against Washington's. I know Eckler was able to get some yards, got a little over 50 yards, and got a touchdown. But yeah, Washington defense is no joke. And on top of that, you have the Giants' offensive line, which is questionable at best. So I'd like to think that Washington's going to be able to pull this one out and get the W here. And the Giants, well, yeah, I don't know how well this is going to go for you this season. But hey, I got nothing. You're just bad. Moving on to the Denver Broncos versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Broncos, as we just talked about, had a big win over the Giants. Teddy Bridgewater looking fine, looking fancy. I know that they need to get the run game going a little bit more, but that defense looking real good. I know Brandon Perna's very happy about that. Meanwhile, you had the Jaguars getting their asses kicked by the Texans. Yeah, in a game that no one really wanted to watch, the Texans actually looked good. And folks, I mean, listen, if you can make the Texans look good, you done messed up. They're already talking about Urban Meyer going to USC, and he's like, no, definitely not. So he'll be there in week 3. And the Jaguars are just a rough team. And it's not Trevor Lawrence's fault. It's kind of just a lot of others around him. And there's some young wide receivers there. You have Robinson at running back, but yeah, this is just not a complete team. And so because of that, the Broncos, how they played last week, I assume that they're going to play that well again. And so because of that, I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos getting the W here. Then you got an AFC East battle. The Miami Dolphins, knocking off the New England Patriots in Foxborough, going up against Mac Jones. The Bills fallen victim to the Steelers and also themselves as they made some mistakes there, especially going on that 4th down with whatever that play call was going to be. Had control of that game against the very difficult Steelers defense and then just kind of gave the game away. The Dolphins really close, contested matchup with the Patriots. Mac Jones didn't look too bad, but the Dolphins, they impressed me. Went into Foxborough and got the job done. This actually could be a real close game. It's a home game for the Dolphins, so I actually give the edge a little bit to the Dolphins. However, I do think that this is the game where the Bills are going to rebound a little bit. I can imagine they're not too happy about what happened last week. And Josh Allen, I feel like he's going to have a better game. However, the Dolphins defense could make things quite difficult for the Buffalo Bills. So I think this will be a very close game, but I'm going to give the Bills the projected win. But again, this could come down to the wire. Then you got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. 49ers for 3 quarters of football looked damn good. Damn good. And then the fourth quarter happened, and people are going to say, it's garbage time. It wasn't just garbage time, folks. The Lions got real close. They lost Verrett. They, on top of that, lost Raheem Mostert for the year, which is a big old problem. And the Eagles, listen, I know they played against the Falcons, but they look good. Jalen Hurts looked good. Devontae Smith looked real good. So I think the Eagles are potentially going to put up a little bit more of a fight than the 49ers could have anticipated. I'm still going to give the edge to the 49ers because I think they are the better team. I think that pass rush is going to be a bit problematic, but Jalen Hurts could scramble. But Jimmy G, he did real well. I know they're going up against a little bit of a better defense than the Eagles here, but I am going to give the 49ers the look here. Though Jalen Hurts, if you can beat the 49ers, I will be forever grateful. Following that, you got the LA Rams taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Rams dissecting the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football. Matthew Stafford posting a career-high passer rating. He was letting it fly. Cooper Kupp doing real well in that game as well. You had the defense who was all over it, except on the run game. I will say, except on the run game, because they allowed David Montgomery to get over 100 yards, and get a touchdown. But other than that, the Rams looked like a really good football team. Now, the Colts, they kind of got their asses kicked. Yeah, just a little bit by the Seattle Seahawks. And the most surprising thing is not that they struggled a little bit on offense, Carson Wentz's first game. That wasn't the most surprising thing. The most surprising thing was that their defense got torched, not only on the ground with the guys like Chris Carson, but Russell Wilson was bombing it to Tyler Lockett, which was very surprising to me. I think the Colts will play a little bit better this week, but I think the Rams are going to be one of the better teams in football. I think they displayed it on Sunday night, and so because of that, I'm going to give Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams the win. Then you got the Vegas Raiders taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Raiders, in one of the craziest games that I've seen in quite some time on Monday Night Football, going back and forth from the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter all the way through overtime. That game was just straight up bonkers. It was insane. But the Raiders basically clutching victory out of the jaws of defeat multiple times, getting the W, which I'm sure the Pittsburgh Steelers are very happy about, considering now you have the Ravens and the Browns sitting in the basement and the Bengals and Steelers on top of the AFC North, and what is going on? I don't know. The Steelers, that defense came up real clutch. TJ Watt coming up real clutch and basically sealing the game for the Steelers, beating the Buffalo Bills. The Steelers have a real good defense, and they don't really look like they regressed at all, even though they lost a couple people. Ben Roethlisberger, he was okay. Deontay Johnson with an amazing TD catch. Najee Harris didn't really get a ton going. Now, the Raiders, with guys like Max Crosby, looked real good. However, the Ravens still found some success in the run game, and I think that Najee Harris is going to definitely have a better game. I think the Steelers are just a better team here. I think David Carr is going to have a tougher time throwing on this defense, and so because of that, I am going to give it to the Steelers, unless the Raiders are somehow able to pull off a miracle once again and go into overtime and throw an interception after a false start on the goal line and then still get the ball back, because then there's going to be a fumble and then they're going to get it and then they're going to go out and then they're going to be like, oh, let's kick a field goal, but then they get a delay of game and then they send out the offense again and then they blitz them. They somehow hit Zay Jones in the end zone. If that sounds made up, nope, that's literally the Monday Night Football game. Then you got the New England Patriots heading to Jersey to take on Zach Wilson and the New Jersey Jets. Both teams coming up short in the AFC East last week. The Jets losing to the Panthers and suffering the wrath, or at least mild wrath, of Sam Darnold, while the Patriots and Mac Jones, who didn't look too bad, fell victim to the Miami Dolphins. And, the Dolphins-Patriots game was super duper low scoring. It was pretty darn close, but the Dolphins defense really did a nice job of just shutting down the Patriots offense throughout the second half. They really couldn't get anything going. The Jets, they struggled. They really couldn't contain CMC, didn't really do a good job on that front, and Sam Darnold even was able to rush in for a touchdown on them. In all honesty, I think the Patriots are going to just get better as the season goes along, especially on that defensive side of the ball. The Jets, they're going to be tough to figure out, especially with guys like Mekhi Becton who are injured, Zach Wilson still growing into the role. I think it's going to be interesting to see both these rookie QBs kind of battle it out, but I'm going to give the Patriots the little bump here just because I think their defense is going to be better than the Jets, and on top of that, I think Bill Belichick is going to do a nice job scheming stuff up for Mac Jones and probably getting that run game going. Meowing into our next game, you got the kitty goes meow Cincinnati 1-0 Bengals because they beat the Vikings. Love you, kitty goes meow. Taking on the Chicago Bears. The Bears, I mean, there really wasn't even a focus on the game. All the announcers were talking about was Justin Fields. Everyone's just like, oh, when's Justin Fields gonna come out? Is he there yet? We don't want Andy Dalton. No, we don't want him. And Justin Fields like, guys, don't make fun of Andy Dalton. And he's like, no, we want Fields instead of Dalton. On top of that, the Bengals going into OT with the Minnesota Vikings. And I think you can make a very strong argument that Dalvin Cook fumble wasn't actually a fumble, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that the Vikings defense looks straight up bad. They looked terrible. And on top of that, Jamar Chase looks like he got over that dropping problem real quick. Going up against the Bears, whose defense didn't look good. It straight up did not look good. David Montgomery on the offense looked real good. Other than that, not a whole lot here. Now, I would like to say the Bengals take this one and make the Bears cry, but I do think that the Bears are the overall better team. I don't know how good their defense is going to be here, but I know they'll be able to move the ball on a very bad Cincinnati Bengals defense. So because of that, I am going to go with the Bears. Expect a lot of Allen Robinson and David Montgomery. Then you have the leaders of the AFC South, the Houston Texans. No, you didn't just have a stroke. That's an actual fact. Taking on the Cleveland Browns. The Texans, as I said before, just dismantling the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is not really a statement. It's more of a mercy killing. And the Browns, tight matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs, coming down to the wire. And then unfortunately, they kind of blew it in the fourth quarter. But the Browns look good. Chubb looked good. Kareem Hunt looked good. And I think that they showed, hey, we could go toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the NFL. The Texans are not one of the best teams in the NFL, regardless of what the standings currently are. Tyrod Taylor, it was nice to see him get a shot and do well, though I don't think the result is going to be the same as last week. And so because of that, I'm going to have the Browns take this one. Following that, you have a battle between the NFC South as the New Orleans Saints take on the Carolina Panthers. The Saints beat the holy hell out of the Green Bay Packers 38-3. Not a single touchdown was scored. Jameis Winston, 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. Kamara, 80 yards on the ground. You had Tony Jones getting 50 yards. Jameis Winston was even scrambling there. The run defense looked real good. Real good. Packers couldn't do really anything. They got a drive going right before half and right after half, and it only ended in 3 points. So that didn't work out. Now, the Panthers, the Sam Darnold revenge game was in full effect. Sam Darnold played pretty well. CMC, of course, being CMC, and played very well. But that was against the Jets. If the Saints are coming out like they did last week against the Green Bay Packers, the Saints are going to win this football game. I think it's very possible for the Panthers to win, but I think there's going to be a lot more of a reliance on Sam Darnold, and I don't know if he's going to be able to get the job done. And so because of that, I am going to go with the New Orleans Saints here, or at least I have to kind of make the loss from the Packers feel a little bit better. Then you got the Minnesota Vikings with their new and improved defense taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, the Vikings didn't look too swell. Didn't look too good. Listen, their offense is good. Let's give them credit there. Adam Thielen still had a good game. You have Justin Jefferson, of course. Dalvin Cook is really good. And then there's Kirk Cousins, but we don't need to talk about that. The defense, though, was supposed to get better, and last week did not look better at all. Taking on the Cardinals, who, demolished the Tennessee Titans, who also have a very bad defense. The Cardinals were not only great on offense with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk, but they were dominant on defense with Chandler Jones getting 5 sacks. That might happen to the Minnesota Vikings. I would be very afraid of that pass rush if I was a Minnesota Vikings fan. But then again, I wouldn't be a Minnesota Vikings fan. I don't even want to think about it. This hypothetical is gross. So I'm going to give this one to Grandpa Cardinal and the Arizona Cardinals, knocking off the Vikings, who will then start 0-2, and at least I can get some joy from the start of this season. Flying into our next game, you got the Atlanta Falcons, who got embarrassed by the Philadelphia Eagles, taking on the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, in a real close game, led up over 400 yards on defense to Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. But they were still able to get the job done with guys like Godwin, Antonio Brown getting over 100 yards, Tom Brady looking fracking good, though a couple of those things could have gotten intercepted. And Mike Evans didn't really have to do anything there. The defense is a little bit concerning, but the Falcons, man, they looked rough. They definitely have the offense, to contend with some of these teams, but the defense looked bad. And I know that the Falcons go this hot and cold thing with their defense, but they need to be like fully on, and Kyle Pitts needs to be a literal god with Calvin Ridley for them to have a chance here. I think this game might be a little closer than some anticipate, definitely a lot closer than it was last year, but I do have the Buccaneers taking this one. Following that, you got the Tennessee Titans taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Titans getting embarrassed last week after everyone talking about how improved their defense was. Yeah, that wasn't really a thing. Derrick Henry held to only 58 yards, and Julio Jones really didn't do anything. And A.J. Brown, I wish so much more for you, my friend. So yeah, the offense really is going to have to get going against the Seattle Seahawks team. The Seahawks dominated the Colts last week, and they looked real good. Russ was cooking, the ground game was going, which I know makes Pete Carroll happy, and even the defense looked pretty good. Now, is Derrick Henry going to be able to punch his way through? Because the Seahawks did a pretty nice job of containing Jonathan Taylor. I do think the Titans will be more competitive in this game, but I am going to give it to the Seahawks, who are playing at home. And beginning of the season, Seahawks, they're really difficult to beat. Later in the season, it gets a bit easier. Then you got America's team in the Dallas Cowboys taking on the LA Chargers. I actually have this game circled because this is going to be a really good game. The Cowboys, to their credit, came out swinging on Thursday night, putting up a fight against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Doing real well on offense. Defense, not so great. But then again, it is the Dallas Cowboys defense. Taking on the Chargers, who their offensive line was absolutely incredible last week against a very good Washington football defense. So I'm not really concerned about the pass rush of the Dallas Cowboys, considering how good that offensive line looked. Herbert did make some mistakes, but I imagine they're going to have a lot more success against this Dallas Cowboys defense. I'm going to pick the Chargers to win this thing because, again, they're one of my teams that I have going real far this year. I believe in that offense. The defense probably will let up a bunch of yards against Dak Prescott, but they're like sneakily underrated. So I think the Chargers will take this simply because they're going to be able to just move at whim against this Dallas D. Then you got a Sunday night game, which is going to bring the heat, in which you got the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Chiefs, as we talked about before, taking on the Browns. Real close game. Were able to come back at the end and get the W. The Ravens, I mean, what a back and forth game. There's just, it was insane just how that game transpired. If you're a Ravens fan, I don't even know what you do at this point. You got no running backs, but Latavius Murray was able to walk in and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be just fine. Tyson came in and he did fine as well. I think the Ravens will definitely look to rebound this week. Lamar Jackson looking as elusive as ever. I'm a little bit concerned about the defense because Derek Carr, even missing a few throws, looked pretty darn good. And that's not to say Derek Carr is a bad quarterback, but what I'm saying is that defense, which was really good last year, may have taken a step down, and they're going to need to play real well against this Kansas City Chiefs team. The good thing is for the Ravens that they are playing at home. However, it's real tough to bet against Patrick Mahomes, so I am going to go with the Chiefs here, though this could turn out to be a really fun game. And finally, you got the Monday Night Football game between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. We talked about the Lions crawling and fighting and biting kneecaps back to get into the 49ers game, but coming up short. The first half, they didn't really look so good, kind of imploding right before the half. And the Packers, well, they never really got out of the gate. They had 2 decent drives and they didn't end well. So yeah, the Packers are going to need to win this game. There's no must-win games in week 2, but this is pretty close, considering all of the people talking right now about how Aaron Rodgers is washed and conspiracy theories he's trying to throw the game. I imagine you're going to see Aaron Rodgers going to come out swinging. Now, Jamal Williams is going to be coming back to Lambeau, which is going to be very tearful, and he had a really, really nice game. We could not stop the run to save our life, so look for Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift to potentially have some pretty big games. I'm not really worried about the receivers too much. And on top of that, Okudah is going to be out for the rest of the year. Look for Devontae Adams and the Packers wide receivers to have big, big games. And as long as our offensive line can do pretty well, which they held up well against the Saints, I think the Packers should take this one. And if not, I'll be screaming into a pillow next week. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you feel about these upcoming games? How did you rank in the Pick'em League? Probably better than I did. Let me know. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media you see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.